Welcome to Allie's Attic, where you never know what kind of surprises you'll find in my attic. I'm your host, Allie, and today my surprise is a country singer-songwriter, Brandon Ryder. Hi, Brandon.
Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, for having me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I'm a fan, so I'm just having a great time right now. Okay, so tell us all about you, like when you started getting into music, right up to just about now, I guess.
It's been a journey. It starts very innocently. It was the late 90s. I was in college. It was the end of 97. And I went to a party, and a couple of my friends were playing guitar, and I thought, you know what, my dad has an old Fender guitar in the closet. He doesn't pull out very much. I'll ask him if I can borrow it. And he said, sure. And so I took it with me back to college, and immediately upon starting to learn the guitar, three chords and the truth, so to speak, I was writing. It was always there was always writing that was there, but there wasn't an avenue where I could put it to music, work with an instrument. I hadn't done that for some reason. And so it started really quickly. I started writing songs, and they weren't good songs. I'm not saying that they were, but it definitely started that passion. And so I put together a little bitty garage band when we lived over in Tyler, and that was '98, and we practiced a lot. I mean, we were groups. So we came to Austin, and I was already married at the time, and I told my wife, at that time we had both finished college. We were both working in Texas, and I felt that there were a time to, make the jump and go do something different. That would be it. So we ended up in Austin by me just saying, hey, I want to go to Austin and I want to try to play music. She was like, okay. So we sold our house, and 3 months later, the end of '99, we were in Austin. For the first year or so, obviously we both had to get jobs to survive. And pretty much every night I would go out and go to different songwriters' nights, open mics. I went to anything and everything. Try to get immersed in the scene and see, what's other guys that I admired at the time. And, back then there was, there's still a lot of top names that come out of the Texas music scene, like, Pat Green or Corey Moore or back then it was Cross Canadian Ragweed. There were all these different bands, and it was fun to watch that. But in 2001, I put together my first project, and April the 15th of that year, we released it. It didn't do a whole lot for us. Put me on the map a little bit, I guess, so to speak. And then 2003 rolls around, and I decided to put out another project. It was called Behind the Pine Curtain. And again, with good intentions, it just didn't, do a whole lot for my career. So around 2004, I met this guy named Walt. I don't know if you know Walt, but he is definitely one of my tops when it comes to singer-songwriters. He writes such beautiful songs, and not to mention the fact that he's just a good guy. He's a great friend and a brother to me. So we started doing some touring together back then, and Susan Gibson as well. We did some tours together, and they were kicking my butt on stage every night. I just didn't feel like my songwriting was anywhere close, and I may not still feel that it's anywhere close, but it started driving me in a different direction, and so Walt, through that process, we decided Walt was going to produce my record. We went to Nashville, and in 2005, we released a record called Conviction. And Conviction was the record that gave me a career.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that Conviction was the record that was also the end-all, be-all for me, as far as, hey, I'm just going to do what I do, and works, it works, and if it doesn't, then I've got my degree, and I'll have to realize the real world. So, that record came out, and it caught on fire. Songs like Free Frame Time, which is still, I would say, my most requested and played song at weddings and everything else,
Mm-hmm.
But that's the song that I wrote about my son before he was born, and it's an honor to get to sing that song every single night, and knowing that the fans can't wait for that song, because if there's a dance floor, you can guarantee it's going to be packed. And so, also, let's get Roll Backroads is on that record. Backroads is such a huge song for me. It's about my youth growing up in East Texas, Northeast Texas, the Piney Woods. We've got a lot of oil and gas industry in that county, and there are a ton of back roads. And when I wrote that song, I really didn't, think that anybody would understand what I was talking about, because I didn't think, anybody else probably did this, riding the back roads.
I did.
Trying to stay out of trouble when you're a teenager,
Yeah.
But I soon found out that everybody all over the world does it.
Mm-hmm.
We were getting emails from Australia, that you would never believe. So that was a great song for us. But just that record as a whole, that really started the momentum as far as, putting more butts in seats and playing bigger venues and festivals. And so, we keep rolling along after that. We did a live record in Texas that did really well for us. And then in 2008, I had met Bradley Foster. If you know country music, you know that name. Just Call Me Lonesome.
Mm-hmm.
And Del Rio, 1959, what a great record from Bradley Foster. So he and I had become friends, and he wanted to produce the record for me. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to go back to Nashville and do, something different. And the record that we made, called Every Night, was a fantastic record. I mean, I absolutely love that record. It's a bit, more polished than Conviction was with Walt, and, it's different production and approaches,
Mm-hmm.
But I love that record, and, for some reason, and I don't know what it was, but that record didn't do very well for us. It just didn't pop, and it's one of those things that makes you scratch your head, because there are so many good songs on that record.
Mm-hmm.
But in the music industry, you sometimes just scratch your head and just keep moving forward. That's what you do. So right after that, 2010, I did a record with Walt again called Head Above Water, and again, this record really did well for us. And I think, again, it's probably just different than, a lot of what I was looking for at that time, and the fact that Walt is more of it's not as polished up, and he leaves space and allows the song to breathe. And it's a different approach than, really slicking it up and putting the bass heavy, what have you. But that record did great for us, and then came the great Live at Billy Bob's. And what an honor that was to be able to be one of, I think at that time it was around 70, 80 artists that had ever recorded a Live at Billy Bob's in Fort Worth, Texas, the largest indoor honky-tonk in the world. Man, what a trip that was to record that. A 13-piece band. I brought people in. Radney came in and sang on a song with me. Walt played in the band and sang one that we sang one of his songs that night. Just so many great things that happened that night. What a whirlwind it was. It was, that's been a great summer for us as well. I love the Billy Bob's. So you can see I've made a lot of records. We still got another one after that. I decided to do a record with a longtime friend and bandmate Matt Powell in 2013. A record called That's Just Me. And I absolutely love that record as well. A little bit more edgy. Matt's such a great guitar player, songwriter himself. He could add layers and layers and layers of guitars, and I think at one point he had like 25 different instruments in the studio. So
Wow.
a great record. We had a couple of great videos off of that, and that's something I haven't talked about through any of this is the things that we've been able to do as far as videos. Shot 4 or 5 now, and about to go in and shoot another one, but. With that record, That's Just Me, we shot a video for that and a video for Leave, and had a song on there called Haggard, which was really born from a night that I got to spend with Charlie Daniels.
Wow.
Opening up for him, and what a gentleman Charlie Daniels is. And he let us sit with him backstage and talk for 20, 30 minutes and take pictures and sign autographs, and I got to go out on the side of the stage that night and watch him and his band, and I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, like, what it must have been like to be alive in 1972 and watch that band take the stage. I mean, it was just insane. It was great. And so, I was thinking about that era and things like Charlie and Riders in the Sky and different things. So I came up with this song. It was a number 1 hit for us here in Texas, and did really well for us. But that brings us up to the current record. We're number 9 in the last, what has it been, 16 years. It's been a ride. It's been there's been a lot of highs, lows, and
so this is
it's just it's go ahead.
okay. No, it's okay. Now this record, Brandon Ryder, is what it's called. Now, it was has it already been released, or is it coming up July 14th?
Yeah, it's coming out July 14th, and we already have a new single out for that record. And you can go right now to iTunes and pre-order your copy of Brandon Ryder, and you can go ahead and get that first single right now. So
Awesome.
It's available.
Good. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, you took a 4-year hiatus from studio activity. And it says you just needed to, take a step back and reevaluate everything. So even though you did take a hiatus from studio activity, were you still touring?
Well, we weren't touring as much. I had 2 children. My wife and I, they're 11, and our daughter's about to turn 9. And, the first part of their lives, we were really just starting to take off, and so a lot of those weeks were consumed with shows, and then, you get back and you get right on a fly to Nashville and go right for 3 or 4 days, and then you fly back and you get one night home, you get back on the bus, and you're going again, and
Yeah.
It was really that time after Billy Bob's that I just I came home. I had been gone for almost a couple of weeks, and both of my children were completely different. They looked different because they had grown, and they acted different. They were saying different things. I just, made a decision at that point that I wasn't going to miss them growing up. And so, I pulled back our dates. We were doing that, 180 to 200 plus a year. And I pulled that back to, 100 to 125. That seemed to work better for me. I don't know that it's helped my career, but, the thing is that, my family is the most important thing to me, and they grow up so quick, and I could tell that very early on that this was going to fly by us, and I just don't want to miss it, and obviously, still playing out on the road and stuff, and just being involved in sports and different activities. I miss things from time to time. In fact, in the last 2 weeks, I missed 2 of my son's tournaments, but the sweetness of it all is that I was able to get home on Sunday and watch them play the championship game and won.
Oh, right.
And, it's bittersweet from time to time because you do miss some of the things, but I try to minimalize that. really make sure that I'm here to be with them and help raise them and get them off on the right foot, whichever direction they go, in the years when they decide to leave. So that's really part of, the taking the break. But also, I mean, I don't want to delve real heavy into, the business side of music, because there's no business like the music business.
Yeah.
It's something that, you have good moments, and bad moments, and good contracts, bad contracts, things that happen. Honestly, just at that time, I just was kind of at the, kind of burned out too. So when you spend that much time on the road, I was reading Merle Haggard's autobiography, and in there he talks about, when you're on the road like this, it's not a matter of if and when you're going to, if you're going to burn out, it's when you're going to burn out. You're going to.
Yeah.
It's not the normal lifestyle that we in the hours that we keep. It's still a passion, and it is my passion. And I think taking that time, and stepping back, and putting this record together in the way that we have, I think it shows a different direction and a different light, and it's kind of a rebranding, relaunching time for me. And I don't think that we could have started off any better than with the single with, Laura McKenna stepping in and joining me on the song, and the fact that she and I, wrote that song together. So I think we're definitely starting off in the right direction.
Yeah, well, it's a great song. Now, this album also is a collection of songs that are both reminiscent of the man that fans have come to love, because you have tons of fans, while providing a new depth of emotion garnered from trials and tribulations felt in recent years. Now, I've talked to a lot of artists, obviously. I take my hat off to you for recognizing that you needed to be there for your family. I know that it's a ride, and it can be amazing and it can suck. But when you invest that much of yourself into getting your career off the ground, you do miss out on a lot of things. And that's the unfortunate part of the business. So I think it's great that you took time out to be with your kids, Brandon. It just shows you what kind of man you are. So, like I said, hats off to you for that. And your fans stayed loyal. I mean, if I go on Twitter and I look at how many followers you have, it's amazing. So, anyways, I just wanted to put that in there because I think that's great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now,
I think it shows in everything that I do and the pictures that we post. And, the family aspect is very, very important to me. We certainly are enjoying it right now. So
well, that's
hopefully
good.
we can continue to maintain that balance between the two, and I think that we will. And I hope I get to make twice the records that I have.
Yeah, well, there you go. And they're getting older too, which makes all the difference in the world. Excuse me. Now, okay, so it's slated for July 14th. And like you said, it was produced by your buddy, Walt Wilkins. It's the third installment from you guys, which you've already talked about because you did Conviction together and Head Above Water. Now, this CD includes 4 co-writes with Keith Gaddis, Michael Hearn, Brie Bagwell, and of course, multiple Grammy winner Lori McKenna. And she sings with you on the song that we're going to talk about, and it's a beautiful song. And, but in the face of so much writing prowess, with having those people write for you, the 6 tracks that you wrote are the best tracks. And it's because it's coming from your heart. And you can tell that. You can tell that from all the songs. But the ones that you wrote yourself, you can tell. And it's all about your life and all the things that you've gone through. And for me, I'm not a songwriter, I'm not a singer, but I appreciate somebody being real and bearing themselves. And that's what I found with listening to the 2 songs that I've got anyway. And listening to your other song and just reading about you. you bury yourself. You don't hold back. And I think that's one of the best things artists can do, and that's what makes them successful.
Yeah, you definitely, as a writer, I step out there on a limb and kind of bear it all. You know, I kind of wear my feelings on my sleeve and on my skin, so you can definitely tell that. And, you know, I just, all the writers that I follow, that I love, you know, some of them are the co-writes on the record as well. You know, the thing that I love about getting to do what I do in the form that we do. I mean, obviously, we're not on a major label, so we're out here, you know, putting our tracks together and you know, making the decisions. And I've always said this, and I'll say it again about this record. You know, if it flops, it's completely my fault because it's exactly what I wanted to do.
I don't think
exactly what I wanted to do.
I don't think it's going to flop. I don't think you have to worry about that. Now,
well, it's a mindset of, you know, and you hear other artists, especially as they get older, and they talk about, you know, being proud of what you've put out, and being able to get up there on stage every night and sing those songs as well, because you want to be careful what you write, because you just might have to sing it the rest of your life. And I'm not exactly sure who penned that statement from the beginning, but Ray Wiley Hubbard told me that some years ago, and it makes me laugh, but it is true. So
yeah,
I'm honest. It's one of the cornerstones of what I am as a person. So I think that that obviously comes out in the way that I write. But at the same time, you know, my country roots are why I feel that I get placed in the country genre. But I write more for and from the inspiration for the song. I don't really sit down and say, well, I'm going to write a radio hit, or I'm going to write a country song, or I'm going to write, you know, this song. I sit down and I let the music, if it comes first, or the words, if they come first, kind of dictate where I'm going to go with that. And I think through that, you know, I've made, you know, some songs that are different and definitely people appreciate. And there are songs that I've written that now I can look back on and say, well, maybe if I would have framed it differently, it could have been a better song. And I think you're always learning and growing. That's what we should be doing as human beings. But, you know, you gotta keep pushing forward and keep trying to write better songs.
And in saying that, my next question, there's new artists galore everywhere. And a lot of them are independent, obviously. So I'm going to ask you two questions. Now, are you signed to a label?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not. We're independent.
Yeah. Now, I've had so many artists tell me that they would rather stay independent than be signed. I mean, there's perks with being signed, and then there's perks with being independent. But they're saying with being independent, they have more freedom. They can create what they want. They can decide when they want to go out on the road, or, you know, perform concerts, or so on and so forth. How do you feel? Like, I mean, I thought in my, you know, not knowing anything about songwriters or singers, that the ultimate goal was to be signed. And now I'm hearing completely different. And then Chance the Rapper went and got a Grammy without being signed. So I'm like, I don't know what to think anymore. So what do you think about that?
Well, there's a love-hate relationship there for sure. You know, I mean, there's not a whole lot of labels anymore. So they're big and they're massive and they own a lot, and they, you know, use their weight to push, you know, the music that fits in the box, so to speak, for them. And, you know, that's their right. But what I feel is that it puts a chokehold on creativity.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of music that is, you know, outside of that box. If you look at just the Americana realm, I mean, what is Americana? Americana is everything that doesn't fit in a box.
Yeah.
It's usually artist driven, and you know, in a lot of situations today on mainstream radio, you can't get artist-driven material. But thankfully, you know, there are stations that stick by and do it, and that's the reason why we do here in Texas have such a big following as well, because we have radio that spins us here in Texas. And you know, there's a lot of Texas Red Dirt listeners around the world now. So I think what you're seeing in the last few years is that when I got into this, it was still a desire to go be on a major label. But as the years have ticked on by and things have started to open up with respect to social media, which is a giant and can help artists who are known locally to become known, you know, in much greater traveling areas. You know, it's a different ball game. Altogether. So I think you're seeing more of that artistry come back with the fact that artists do have the ability to, you know, stay independent and do their things. So I think it's a really great thing. It's just, you know, I think some of these guys are getting an opportunity to blow up quicker because of social media and the way that you can get information to people now. It's just a completely different ballgame.
Yeah,
so,
it sure is.
in short and long, to answer your question, I mean, if you don't want to be on the label, I mean, you don't have to these days.
Yeah.
If you're willing to put in the time and the effort and be on the road and, you know, make the radio shows and the open mics and the benefits and everything that you can.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, like you said, with Spotify and there's so much social media. It's just changed so much. I did radio for a number of years, and one of the most frustrating things for me was these people bringing in CDs or whatever, and they want me to play them, and I can't because, you know, we're in this genre in the radio station and we can't put independents on, and which is what made me start doing this, because there is so much good music out there that at least now we're hearing because of social media, but, you know, a couple years ago we weren't hearing about them. And they were still out there struggling and trying to do the best they could. And now seeing them kind of come into their own without being signed is just, it makes my heart happy because we have so many talented people. Now, if you had any advice to give any of these new artists that are coming out or, you know, brand new, what would that be?
You know, I have always listened to and followed singer-songwriters. People that were indescribably, unmistakably themselves. I think that's what you want to surround yourself with. We all have influences. But if you surround yourself with influences that are uniquely themselves, then you will be uniquely yourself. And that's something that, as an artist, is important to me, is being me. And I think that, you know, oftentimes there's a lot of guys that come out, girls too, that, you know, kind of regurgitate some things that happened in the past. You know, if that works for you, that works for you. But I think being true to the craft and following those singer-songwriters. And you know, I mean, I love Daryl Scott. Lori McKenna is one of my absolute favorites, and getting to write with her and have her sing on this record's huge. Walt Wilkins is another huge, you know, favorite of mine. And then, I mean, we go back and, you know, Guy Clark and then go back to my early days when all I could listen to and all I could hear was country music coming from, you know, every house around us, from, you know, Don Williams to the early, you know, Willie days and stuff like that. So, be yourself. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Keep at it, because that's what makes it. I mean, you just got to keep putting the work in.
Yeah, definitely. Don't give up. Okay, well, on that note, I get so caught up in what people are saying when I interview them that I just kind of sit back and listen, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to ask stuff. Anyways, the two songs we're going to hear from you. Now, the one you've already kind of teased, that's the single that people can get, and the beautiful Laurie McKenna sings it with you. And it's a beautiful song. I'm not going to name it yet because I just want to talk about something about it. When I heard about the guy sewing his own jeans, it kind of made me chuckle. And that's not what it's meant to be. It's a very good song, and it totally describes how things should be. Unfortunately, they're not always like that. And my ex, if I ever gave him a needle and thread, he'd probably look at me like I completely lost my mind. But anyways, that just caught me. But the song is called They Need Each Other. Talk a little bit about where that came from.
It's funny, you made me laugh with that, but
Sorry.
if you grew up in my household, you knew how to do that.
Yeah.
My mother is an artist. She's a painter, and she's a good Christian woman, and my dad was a mechanic, and growing up in that household, you learned how to hold flashlights, and if you needed to maybe sew something together, Mama would do it most of the time. She kind of washed and picked it up. But, the song is about one day I walked into the house and kind of, announced that I was home like you do. I heard my wife in the back, and so I went to find her, and I rounded the corner, and she was back in one of the kids' room. Our daughter's sink was stopped up, and she was underneath the sink. She was going to get that unclogged. And, it was on my honeydew list. She had told me about it, and I hadn't gotten to it quick enough. And she decided to take matters into her own hands. And while at that moment I thought that I should feel guilty that I hadn't gotten to it sooner, I was also appreciative of the fact that she was willing to, jump in there and get the job done. So I told Lori about this story when I arrived in Boston, and we were sitting down to write. And we just ran with it. And that's the great thing about writing with somebody like Laurie McKenna. She just throws out, different avenues. And so it didn't take us a real long time to write that song. And I think it is about, relationships that endure.
Yeah.
It's that giving as much as you can give and not always taking. So that's it's a sweet song.
It is. It's a great song.
I feel like it represents the record well.
Yeah, it does. And I really love it. I absolutely love it. Now, the other song we're going to hear is called Evergreen. And I absolutely love that one, too. Now, I'm going to tell you what my take on it is, and then you can tell me what it's about. For me, it's talking about being reborn. And, when the leaves start changing and, you want to be evergreen. And that's just, to me, how I perceive the song. So what is the song about?
Well, first off, it was written by Michael Hearn, Susan Gibson, and Monica Smart. And I heard this song up on a mountain in Red River, New Mexico, on a sunny 70-degree August afternoon. It was perfect weather. And Michael was playing at the top of the mountain. I had the afternoon off, so I took the gondola, my wife and I, to the top of the mountain. I got a banquet beer and sat down, and Michael started singing, and it went by so fast. It was such a great, great singer-songwriter. And again, he's another one of those guys that is uniquely himself. And gosh, what a great entertainer, too. Great guitar player. So he played this song called Evergreen, and when I heard it, I just fell in love with it. I met him after the show, and we became friends, and talked through the last 2 or 3 years. And I told him that I wanted to put that song on the record. I think you're exactly right in your interpretation of what it means, and I feel like it really represents kind of where I've been over the last 4 years or so. That it is kind of a rebirth, and like I said earlier, a relaunch and a rebrand, and I think as you continue to get older, and obviously things that are important to me today weren't important 10 years ago, and the things that were important then aren't important now, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is just a beautiful song about finding your way,
mm-hmm.
about, we all get off the track, but you have to search within yourself and within what your passion really is to find your way back.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens in the song. So it's just so beautiful. And I'd like to mention as well, on every record that I've done with Walt, he's had like one song that has just been like the ultimate baby of the babies, And this was that song when I told him I wanted to record it with, and that's the reason we put it first song on the entire record, is that it's a statement. It's a statement song, and I think Walt and everybody involved just did such a beautiful job on the arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very proud of it, and thankful that it was my first song on this new self-titled record, and I believe it sets the tone for what I think is a very shiny, pretty record with 10 individual tracks on it that make up, one collection of tunes.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely do love it. Now, like you said, you can pre-order, so I'm urging everybody to go wherever you download your music and pre-order Brandon's CD, and it is called Brandon Ryder. I'm going to spell your last name. It's Rhyder. Your website's going to be up on my website, so people can find you, and you can already purchase the single, They Need Each Other. And it's beautiful. Both songs are beautiful, but if I had to pick, I'm sorry, Evergreen would be hands down my number one.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. And Brandon, thank you so much for joining me. And I wish you all the best. And I hope you fly. And anytime something huge happens, you win a Grammy, whatever the case may be, my door is always open. You have me on Twitter. Connect with me and we'll get you back on. I don't do just one-shot deals. I always love to hear how artists that I've had on are doing. So that's kind of my selfish little thing, because I always want to know if you're doing well. So anyways, thank you so much.
Well, I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you coming on. And thank you so much. And wish Kelly all the best and your children. And hopefully we'll be talking soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for joining me on Allie's Attic. Keep checking my website because you never know what kind of surprises you'll find in my attic. Cheers!